Adi Cohen is the founder of the New Movement, an architecture studio that designs one-of-a-kind projects worldwide. She's the host of the podcast Go Out and Talk to Strangers, TEDx speaker, Forbes-featured, passionate creator and free thinker. Adi is on a mission to create the most inspiring places on earth, with the intention of using the built environment as a tool to help people thrive. Adi is a global citizen, the first architect to be living a nomadic lifestyle while working. She uses her travels as a source of inspiration, a way to connect ancient wisdom and learn from local communities. In this episode, we discuss a wide range of topics, including how to cater to the architectural needs of purposeful communities, the influence of AI on building design, and the effects of architecture on our nervous system. Adi is a friend of mine whom I met during the pandemic in the mastermind group for female leaders. We became accustomed to engaging in deep, meaningful conversations, and I'm delighted that we recorded one for you to tune in. So let's get started. Welcome to the show about new ideas on how we live, work, and connect. This is Bori Vig, your host, and in the following episode, together with my guests and listeners, we are again in search of something different. Hey Adi, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for accepting my invite. I'm really happy to have you here.
It's so good. It's always fun to talk to you, and now other people can enjoy it too. So.
Yes, exactly. I don't think you know that, but imagine whenever I talk about being a digital nomad and then the different ways how to become a digital nomad, I always bring you up as an example.
Really?
Yeah. Because I think people usually think that you can be a digital nomad only one way, and then there's like this classic form of, I don't even want to talk about drop shipping, but there's various like classic forms, copywriting or coaching, and what you do is incredible. You became an architecture who is a digital nomad. Is there anybody else who does that?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that some people are freelancing, right? So they do different services for other clients, but having your own firm and traveling the world, that's quite unique. And I'm very grateful to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think the world is grateful for you as well that you do it. So let's go a little bit to your Japan trip, if you don't mind to go a little bit back in time and then tell me a
Go
little
back
bit.
in time. Yeah.
So would you mind telling me a little bit about what happened in Japan? How did you get there? And then I think there was a pivotal moment there in your life.
It was a big crisis. So, you know, as humans, we keep doing what we're doing until something happens, and then you get I had the opportunity to break the script that I was living before, a script in which I wasn't happy and wanted to break out of. And it needed a crisis. In my case, it was me and my partner that we decided to split, and then a close friend of mine passed from cancer. And it was just that moment in life when you think to yourself, okay, enough with the nonsense, enough with waking up in the morning feeling unfulfilled, enough with all of that. I'm going to sell everything I have and get a one-way ticket to Japan, which makes perfect sense at that point, because nothing made sense anymore. Not my work, not my relationships. I didn't know what's next for me, but I definitely knew what's not working. And I was just, I wanted to see what else could life be like if only I'll go into that unknown, if only I'll take that leap of faith and see what will happen. So it wasn't that classical story of, oh, I can work remotely and now I'm going to travel the world. It's more of, I have no idea what comes next, but I'm done living this weird 9-to-5 life, and I want to see what else is there for me, even if it means not being an architect anymore.
Wow. But you were already working as in a 9-to-5 in an architecture office?
Yeah. So I was there, at that point I was a partner in a firm.
Wow.
I worked really hard for years to get there. Like, I did the whole architecture school. I did my internship. I got my license. I became a partner. I started bringing projects into the firm. And I was so miserable. I was so unhappy. And also I kept feeling like something is wrong with me, because I have I ticked all the boxes, of the adult life. Like I'm married, I'm in a firm, I have a beautiful dog, and we just got this opportunity to buy a house in Israel, and I just felt so trapped and felt like I'm living on maybe 10% of what life has to offer. And I wondered if everyone around me is feeling the same and no one is talking about it, or this is it, this is life. Am I supposed to just be? I know you also experienced that moment in your life.
Exactly. I'm like listening to my own thoughts, like saying by you. It's crazy. It gives me goosebumps.
Wow.
And I wonder how many people are going to feel the same way when they're listening to this episode of.
I think it's quite an, if you're willing, if you're honest enough with yourself. Many people feel that. Many people feel it's like, okay, I'm doing what I should be doing, but is this what I want to be doing? Is this what I want to pursue in life? Or why am I doing this at all?
Exactly.
And I questioned that a lot, but looking into the future, I didn't have any vision of what else can I be doing differently. I remember meeting those digital nomads on my travels and thinking to myself, it could have been so nice if I could work remotely, but I can't because I'm an architect.
Okay, that's the sentence I keep hearing from other people. And I'm like, well, I know this architect. She's from Israel, and then she's a nomad.
Yeah, so it was a lot of serendipity in the moment and a lot of unplanned, but it was also that ability to say yes to opportunities as you come across them, as things happen to you, or life presents you with options and choice. And you also have to find the strength within yourself to say, okay, why don't we give it a try? So for me, it started with taking that leap into the unknown. Like, I don't know what's next, but I'm going to go for it because enough with everything.
Yeah.
I want something new.
And then when you say like something new or something different, you mean going into a culture that has nothing to do with whatever you knew before, because Japan is like not your casual choice, right?
No, it's not, but it's been my dream for so many years.
That's why.
I'm not like an anime fan or anything like that. I just had that gut feeling for years that I want to be in Japan and I want to walk the streets and not understand the language and not even to be able to read the letters and to be somewhere that is so radically different from everything I know. And that already happened on the bus from the airport.
What happened?
Like you can't understand anything and you're in this new environment and then I arrived to Tokyo. It's like, okay, now what? But no, seriously, like to be a complete stranger, to immerse yourself in a new environment. Now looking back, I understand it's more of an activation of the senses that I was seeking. But back then it was just this old dream of, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to follow what I want to do. And I want to get rid of all those stupid things I have and I don't even use. I moved a few apartments in Tel Aviv back then because it was a process to decide to live. And every time I would take my boxes up and down the stairs, I just hated all my belongings. Just like seriously, you're carrying it up and down, and it's just like, what do I even have in those boxes? What do I need? What do I really need? And then you realize that's very little. And I am a collector, and I was a collector of beautiful items. So whenever I told my friends about it, so listen, I decided to get rid of all my things and go to Japan. They're like, wow, that's insane. What do you do with the sofa? What do you do with the just like waiting list?
They're like, we're so sad, but what are you gonna do with
Exactly.
the bookshelf?
This teacup that you have. Can we have that? So now when I'm visiting friends, it's like getting flashbacks of my old life. It was really interesting.
But wait a second, so you sold everything and then went to Japan? And it's really...
I didn't really want to store anything. I didn't want to be bothered with the idea of renting out a place, or I just wanted to be completely free. So that means, yeah, most of the things are gone. I have like a few boxes with memories in my parents' house, but that's about it.
That's all.
Yeah.
Wow. So what happened in Japan?
So in Japan, first of all, I had freedom, which is a lot for someone who's been caged for so long. I didn't have to wake up to a certain place in the morning. I found this really interesting deal. A friend told me about this place where you can volunteer in exchange of accommodation. So it was this cafe, an English cafe for Japanese people. And I think I volunteered like twice or 3 times a week for 2 hours to have coffee and talk to Japanese people. I was like, wait, that was my plan anyway. So I'm going to go for it. So that was a very soft landing into Japan. So I would just walk the streets of Tokyo every day and then go to the cafe and talk to people and ask them about things that I saw and engage in conversations. And every Friday night we would have a party. Then there's a lot of alcohol, and everyone is all of a sudden fluent in English. And then we would like end the night in a karaoke somewhere. It was such a wonderful experience to be there. But I kept feeling, okay, what's next? You know, like, okay, good, I'm doing this thing now. I studied for 10 years, became an architect and all that, and now it's all going to waste. What am I going to do next? And like, obviously, how am I going to afford this lifestyle now? Where I have no idea what's next for me.
Yeah, now especially in Japan, it's not the cheapest country. It's not like going to India or Thailand. So you went
Exactly.
like right into it, like
I had some
go big or go home, literally.
Yeah. I don't know, like money wasn't an issue. It wasn't, I had some savings and I allowed myself to spend them and create more joy in my life. But yeah, it's still, you know, you see that your bank account slowly getting, yeah, less and less full, you might say. And then something happened. So I'll give you the short version of the story because I know we have a lot of things we want to cover. So somehow I ended up in this village in the mountains. And I was supposed to be somewhere else, but it didn't work out. It was this whole thing with this Zen dojo. Never mind. And for other
Never
time.
mind, it's another conversation.
Yeah. And then I found myself in this place and I met a couple from New Zealand and they just bought a hotel.
Oh, okay.
And we met at this cafe and they told me about it. And I was working on some projects remotely for my old firm because a few clients I didn't want to completely cut loose. So I just know I have this and then I don't know what's next. And then we started a conversation and they asked me if I'm an architect. It's like it's really middle of nowhere mountains in Japan. Like, yeah. It's like, oh, that's so cool. We just bought this place and we had we brought in a Japanese architect, but he doesn't really get what we want to do. So maybe you can come and give us your opinion. And it's like, yeah, sure. You know, like whatever.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Why not? I'm here and they seem like lovely people. So we went there and I ended up working with them on the renovation of this hotel and we completely changed how the layout was and we went out and got some really cool secondhand things for the kitchen. It's a very long story that I'm trying to make short. So this opportunity came and I experienced it more as a one-time thing. But then it happened again when I was couch surfing somewhere near the Art Islands. And I was couch surfing and then they discovered that I'm an architect and they asked me to do a recorded consulting session for them because there was this abandoned former hospital building, like seafront, beautiful, 3,000 square meters, that they wanted to convince the city hall to allow them to use that as a cultural center. And they're like, oh, it would be really helpful for our presentation if we can record you and your ideas, because I have a lot of ideas, and show it at the meeting. And you can still find that video online. It's on YouTube. Wow. And then I was like, wait, so Japan has incredible architects. Why do they need me? You know, but there was something about my outsider's perspective. And
I got it. Yeah.
That brought something new, and it made me think that maybe there's a way that I could travel and be an architect at the same time. So I explored that. And when I arrived in Thailand, I just posted on a group, hi, I'm Adi, I'm an architect, I'm going to be here for a few weeks. Let me know if you need anything. And people reached out to me.
Amazing.
So I built a brand around that, right? So I started posting everywhere I went. I built a website. I figured out how I can make it work because obviously as an architect, you have to stay and you know, get the license and oversee the execution and all that. But I couldn't do that, first of all, because my license does not apply globally.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Even in the US, for each state, you have different tests and different license. So That's off the table. But then I remembered that, you know, the biggest firms in the world, they work in this method. They develop concepts and then they partner with a local firm that does the licensing and execution. Like, oh, I can do the same. I can bring my ideas, I can work with the clients, but then we'll collaborate with the local firm to execute it. And that's what happened.
That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is until now. So it's also really fun to work in collaboration. You also want to you always want to have someone who knows well the regulation and the city hall and the fire safety and accessibility and all those little regulations that are extremely important in construction. It's not art. It's not like
it's
people
necessary.
gonna. It's important safety and regulations, but I guess because the way I live and because the time that I have to engage with big ideas and trends and innovations from around the world, the kind of concepts that I can create for my clients is radically different from an architect who's just staying in one place. Long story short.
No, I love it because you've kind of find a niche of having all these cultural differences and all this cultural taste. So, for example, I know I think this was one of the projects in Japan when they didn't use the lobby.
Yeah.
And you as an outsider could tell why they, and as an architect obviously, but you could tell why they are not using the lobby. What was that story?
Okay, so that was at that hotel in Japan. So what they wanted to do, I tried not to go into details, but since you asked,
I'm really curious about that. Like seriously, I think it's super fun. Yeah.
So the thing was that no one ever used the public spaces of the hotel, the lobby, and there was this like really nice living room and a shared kitchen that guests rarely used. And the thing was, it was because you could go from the entrance to your room without even seeing the lobby because of the way that it was laid out. And obviously, what we don't see, we don't engage with. And that's a very basic principle in behavior of psychology. For example, if you want to eat more fruit and you put a bowl of fruit on the kitchen table, so you see it, you're more likely to eat it. Right? So you know that thing, but we're very visual creatures. So the things we don't engage with or even come across, we're not registering it in our heads. And also, if you look at urban design and how cities evolved, it was always on trade routes. When two trade routes meet, this is where something started to happen. So when people pass by, the movement, the circularity within a city or within a space is extremely important to create those invitation of engagement. So what we did there, we changed the layout so people can see the lobby, and we also added more rooms because it was a bit too big for the size of the hotel. And that's another thing. You don't want to have a very big space that it's always empty. It's better to have a smaller space that is wisely used. And and then, it worked. And it was quite amazing to receive that message. So I left them with the drawings because I kept traveling.
Yeah.
And I could also tell that they know what they're doing. They were very crafty. And a few months later, I'm getting a text message from them. It's like, oh, you wouldn't believe it. People are sitting in the lobby.
I love it.
And I was just like, yes, that's like as satisfied as you can be as an architect is to see people using something you envision in real life. That's as magical as it gets.
Yeah, because I think, so I used to work at a firm that was doing software for architects.
I didn't know that about you.
I worked for Graphisoft for 8 years. I was doing social media for them. And so I had a lot of architecture friends, colleagues and then friends. And what I never knew about you guys before is that you have the perfect mix of being a dreamer and a creative person, but with the math, with like doing the calculations and using both sides of your brain. So we were always joking with my non-architecture friends, like these people are super different creatures than most of the rest of us, because in this example, you can also see that how it's not only about beauty, but it was also about creating something, right? So creating a community even within the hotel where people hang out and they have an extra experience. And another thing that you came in with solving a problem. And it was not like, how do I make it more pretty? Like I have this need to to have the people hang out here and have good memories. And I love that you do that.
Absolutely. And that's what we remember from places. Like when you travel, and obviously the built environment makes a lot of difference with how people engage with each other. But that random, I don't know, person who was traveling at the same time as you, and you had this conversation that led into something beautiful in your life, to allow that to happen in a place, that's what will keep people, people will keep coming back there because it allows that. It's not that, those, that experience in the apartments that are self-serviced, right? So you come, there's a lock and a code, and you don't even see a human being. You don't remember anything about that place. You have no emotion, nothing like evokes towards it. It's just, okay. But what about that other place when the host welcomed you and make sure you have everything you need, and maybe showed you a few cool secret spots on the city map, and it's like, oh, actually have a better memory of that place. So how we connect with other human beings is extremely important in design and in experience design and in architecture, because architecture is just a container that allowed people to behave or to connect with others and to themselves. And how do we do that? That's where it gets really interesting.
So is this what your new movement company is about? How to connect people to spaces?
Yes, it is. It's about that idea that architecture is more than having a roof over your head. You know that we spend 90% of our time indoors nowadays.
90%.
90%. And that's rather new to us. We evolved in nature. We used to have much more interaction with the natural environment. And now just being indoor all this time with the fixed light and the fixed temperature, and that we're sensory deprived pretty much. We don't get enough stimulation to our senses, and we're kind of bored by it.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way when I was working at Graphisoft. I loved them actually. That's why I stayed for 8 years, and it was kind of a golden cage because they were a super nice company to work with. But I felt like I'm going into my office, I'm taking the same route, and then I'm sitting in front of this computer. Even the thing that I'm looking at is in the same distance. So like I'm using my eyes for the same distance. It's like 30 to 50 centimeters, and depending on how much I'm concentrating on the thing. And I'm touching the same things, like I'm touching the mouse and touching the keyboard, and I'm on the same temperature. It's 24 degrees there, and I'm from Hungary, so we have 4 seasons, and I'm experiencing one. And I go home and I watch something on Netflix, and that's it.
And repeat.
And repeat.
And repeat.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, no. Life must be more than that.
Exactly.
And questioning how I live also allow me to question how we do architecture. And so many, when you travel to a place, where do you stay? Do you stay in the new city or in the old city?
Yes.
Something shifted with how we do things. Something shifted with the amount of soul we put into the built environment, and how much we take care of the human experience within those environments. And it made me think, like I had a lot of time to think on my travels, right? Because I'm not busy working so much. And not only how I live my life, is how am I using my energy in the world? What am I creating in the world? And what would I like to see more of? And some places just have this magnetic quality that you feel like you want to spend time there. You had this, you walk in the street in Italy and you look into this balcony and you just think to yourself, oh, I want to live there. Why? Why do you want to live there? Or some other places that you just can't wait to get out of. What is those qualities that spaces has, and how can we create more of that? And the new movement is about that invitation to reimagine how life could look like, how work environment could look like, how community living or residential buildings could look like co-living projects. We can use the built environment as a tool. That's why that's the goal, to amplify well-being and creativity and performance, and pretty much to help people thrive in a sustainable way. Of course, we love the planet, but it's not only about that. If you have to choose, we don't have to choose. We can do both. We can find that sweet spot between planetary boundaries and human beings who inhibited it. And if those human beings are miserable and they have a weird concept of what success looks like, they'll overconsume and they'll be unhappy, and then they'll behave in destructive ways. So it's all feeding on each other. It's the same system, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh. I started to feel, meanwhile you were saying these things, that we were living in one way before, and things are changing rapidly through, obviously, because of the technology went on steroids in the past like 30 years. And then we have internet now, so we started becoming more location independent. And previously we were catered to families living together, and pretty much that's how far we went. But now I feel that many of the younger generation want to be location independent, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think it's going to become a little bit the new normal, that you can have a space in Berlin and have a space in Thailand, or just renting. Hopefully, I think it's a better idea, but it's my personal opinion. So I'm feeling that this family living is maybe is not the only way how we are going to live in the future. And then you mentioned a few things what we need to start cater to, and one of them was community living. So I feel that we both love communities. We're both burners, by the way, and then we love enjoy so many types of communities. And what do you think we will see how things are changing in respect of architecture, for example?
Yeah, so I think things are already changing, and you're so right to bring that point, because this one way of living is so based of capitalism and the idea that we should have everything in-house. So we went from living in tribes or in villages where we rely on each other more and share resources, to having your own apartment, your own family, and you're isolated. You don't have, so many people in the city don't know their neighbors.
Yeah.
And we see the real pandemic nowadays is loneliness. So you go to the office, you go back home, you watch your television, no one knows who you are, and that is something that people are breaking out of. And it started with co-living projects for the early adopters, who are nomads, students, people who are more open to share resources, right? So, for example, in co-living, if someone from the listeners is not familiar with the concept, you'll still have your own personal space. It could be a room, or it could be your own apartment, but it will be slightly smaller than the standard one. And in exchange, you'll have communal spaces. You have a community living room, you have a communal kitchen that is very well equipped, and you have people that are intentionally choosing to live together in this setting, and there are community events and this whole thing of coming together. So it doesn't mean to live in a commune. It doesn't mean you don't share your clothes with everyone like in a kibbutz or something, but you do know who your neighbors are, and maybe you collaborate with them. You go to the same co-working space, and you share your life with others by choice. And the funny thing is that we also see families doing that nowadays, and we see multi-generational co-livings, and we see it's so interesting this time that we live in, because you don't have to live in the city anymore to go to work. You can have as long as there is internet.
Exactly.
You can work from anywhere. So what do you do now? Do you go to live in closer to nature? Do you go to Thailand? Do you go to what is alive for you right now, where you're curious to experience, and then people follow. And it creates so many different forms of living, and businesses and families. And now you see the grandparents are following the families. It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so wild. And then all those families, they need new schooling system, right? Because they're not gonna send their kids to this old paradigm kind of school.
Yeah.
What kind of education we wanna see nowadays? It's not that assembly line classroom that is just about obeying and being on time. And I bet you also had that thought. I literally remember myself in the first grade sitting there and thinking, this is how it's going to be from now on.
I had it on my first work day.
And then again in the first work day.
Yeah.
And it's this feeling of being contracted, being that like small, narrowed down into this weird version of yourself that you're only allowed to be this or that. And now the new parents, they're not playing this game anymore.
Yeah.
They want their children. We don't even know what we're teaching children for. Like, what are the skills that they need to have for the professions of the future, if that will
We have
even
no
exist.
idea. We have
right?
no idea if what.
No idea. So what do we need to do for them? We need to help them to be creative. We need to help them to adapt quickly, to be open-minded, to make friends, maybe to know a few languages. All those new schools, they're about inner development.
Yeah.
And about how to have the skills to learn things yourself rather than just sit in a classroom and wait for someone else to feed you information. And all kids have this curiosity, but we switch it off at some point because it's harder to control. Sounds so rebellious, but I'm sorry, I am. You know, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's like, why cage people if they can be something else?
Definitely, and I think many of my friends are struggling who are parents now. They're struggling to how to set their kids to the system, because I think, and I don't actually want to blame the schools, because it's super difficult to change the system from year after year after year, and then of course there's more history that they need to learn than what we did, like, you know, a few decades ago, and there's so much more things that they need to catch up with, and I think it's super difficult if they don't change dramatically, right? If they don't go like, okay, every lexical thing that we had, I need to let go, and because we have internet now, so I don't actually have to know all these things. Imagine one of the things why I one of the billion things why I decided to go traveling was I was with my family and we were playing this game that the indigenous bastards playing. So I have it's a movie.
Okay,
Indigenous Bastards with Brad Pitt and Quentin Tarantino makes it's a super nice movie. You watch it; it's really cool. But they're playing this game that they have some a name written on the forehead and a piece of paper, and then the others help figuring out by questions, or like you try to figure out by questions. And so I play with my parents and my brother and my sister-in-law, and the even just like the ideas that we came up with, like the younger generation, were like so much more easier and maybe pop culture reference. And my parents were super on spot with historical figures, and like they had so much more lexical knowledge. And I realized, well, I don't need to have that because I have it in my pocket. So I don't actually care about that. But then I realized that I'm spending most of my time online, so I have most of my memories online because I have them on the cloud. I take pictures, I take videos, everything is on there. My music is on there. So most of the things of my brain starts to migrate to the cloud. It's going to be accessible. So that was the moment when I realized that, yeah, even for me, I want to go out and experience the real life until there is still life to experience. And I know that it's getting really like Black Mirror-y of like what's the next step, but I think we are going through the new paradigm. And not only it was difficult for us millennials, but the next generation will need to take care with AI everything that we have, right? So pretty much that's the next step. I knew it's coming. I don't want to brag, but I kind of knew it 10 years ago that something big is going to happen in technology. And then we are at the beginning of that. How do you think architecture is going to change because of AI?
That's a very interesting topic. Well, we don't know anything, like seriously. And anyone who tells you they know, they're lying.
Including ChatGPT.
Oh, especially ChatGPT. Yeah, but you know what? It's quite fascinating because so there's a lot of technical work in architecture, right? So you have the ideas, you create the volumes, and then you detail them, and then there's this whole other process that usually takes years to superposition all the infrastructures, like the pipes and the electricity and the air conditioning, and to have all different let's say in Portugal they call it speciality projects, but it's basically like all the different consultants plugs into the one master plan that is all coordinated. And very often it's like you look at those files and they have like every layer has color, and it just looks like an abstract painting because it's so overloaded with information. So AI is going to help us with the technical things. There are already startups nowadays that you can you know, input, feed it design, and it will create the work drawings. Like something that would usually take an entire team a few months can now be done in 30 minutes. And that's wonderful because that gives us more time to think about the actual design. Oftentimes, architects are complaining that they don't have enough time to come up with new creative solutions because of they're not being paid enough, and there's time stress and all that. If you have AI to do your work drawings, you have plenty of time to think about the layout and to test out different ideas. So, in a sense, I think it's going to be great. Also, it's going to be a challenge. So, everything we put into machine learning is going to amplify. So, if we only feed it with profit algorithms, we're going to get much smaller apartments. There's like that. You can see that in many of the new buildings around the world. Like the smallest windows you can do, the height of the ceiling is just exactly what is needed in the building codes of the area because they want to have as many floors as possible with the height limitation. And in all buildings, there's this more generous approach of it just feels more human in many of the older buildings. So ideally, we would learn how to balance that, right? Profit and experience, which I believe is completely possible. But as we see most of the trends or most of the architecture around the world, big scale, it's not human enough. This could be a problem, and this is something that we should address as early as possible.
It feels like we are going into the direction of fixing how not to be lonely anymore.
Yeah,
I think so.
with the Hair kind of movie. Figures? Or no, there was this movie Hair.
Yeah,
No,
I love it. Yeah.
Okay, just have your own virtual friend that is. Yeah, it's interesting. We had this discussion a while ago, me and a few friends. If it's better to have a friend who's digital, like a machine, right, than no friends. What's your take on that?
Definitely better a digital friend, I think. No?
Yeah.
No?
Like I see people going with like their tablets to restaurants and to the beach. They want to show their avatar at the beach. And
I mean, I don't know if what I feel is that we are, because of the cities, because of our way of living, we are experiencing more loneliness than probably before and less conflicts. I think less interpersonal conflicts. Therefore, we choose not to, hang out with other people because then this person, I don't like how the noise that he's making when he's eating, like stupid things.
yeah.
And I can tell that might be a possibility to have like a chewing gum friend, like an AI friend that can talk to me. But my personal opinion is that us who started traveling, for example, we continue travel because we find like-minded people. And I think how you were in Israel and I was in Hungary and we experienced the exact same thing.
That's mind blowing.
It's mind blowing,
Yeah.
and having the same thought. So in many ways, I'm so much closer to you right now than anybody many of the people I grew up with, because we are just. I think we were just coming from we have a different character, and I think you called us early adopters because we were nomads before it was cool.
Well, we worked remotely before COVID.
Exactly,
and all that.
Yeah. But I feel that the whole idea was to find each other and find the people who were feeling the same way, and not to be lonely, because you can be lonely in a relationship, you can be really lonely in a friendship even if they don't understand you. And I think these things that you mentioned right now, including the new school system or co-living or how we're going to work or how we're going to change the way with architecture how we live, and with the help of AI, is getting us there to be connected again.
Yeah, I agree.
No question.
It's funny because we're like the old structures are falling apart. People has less trust with their government and with like how life should be lived, and they're questioning more and more. And I think for me personally, the biggest benefit of going out and meeting the world and talking to people, it's also the name of my podcast, right? Go out and talk to strangers, because it completely changed my views. To be able to see that I'm not alone, I'm not the only one who's crazy, is not satisfied with this kind of life, and to find others that are reinventing incredible businesses, that are living life in ways I couldn't imagine before. And it just widened the scope of what is possible. And then you feel connected. And then the next layer of, you have nomads who are, okay, making their, earning online, living their life. That's cool. Then you have the mission driven people, like purpose, impact, change makers that I connected with recently, I don't know, recent 2-3 years. And it's just like, wow, this is that idea that I have something bigger than myself that I work towards. It's not only about making money. It's like money is okay to have, but it's really about bringing something new, and it's about connecting with others who are bringing something new, and to visualize together what is the desired future that we're working towards. Ooh, this is where I feel at home. And those people are scattered everywhere. It's so hard to find them. So whenever you feel you find one, it's like gold. You're like, oh my God, I found a diamond today. I found a diamond. It exists. Not only in my head. And then you find more. And if you put them together, damn, it's like it shines so bright. And it just makes me believe, first of all, there is the sense of belonging, because I feel at home in many places, but also in many, like just like you said, to many of the friends I grew up with, we don't share the same vision for life, or we don't share the same value. Like, and when you're gonna settle down, do you get this question?
All the time.
When are you gonna have enough of these travels of yours? You're not tired yet? Tired. I'm as energized as I've ever been. I've never felt so alive. I was more tired living the same day over and over again. That's tiring.
Yeah, yeah, and I cherish everybody's personal feeling, because I think there's so many people out there who just imagine that my brother, who's like, we share the same parents, both of them. He's the complete opposite. He loves going to work at 9 o'clock and getting out at 5 o'clock. Like, he loves that there's routine. He loves that it's always the same people. So I really don't want to say, and I'm sure that the same goes to you, but I think there's so many other people out there who can live a way better life than they do right now. But as you said in the beginning, going through the checklist, like, okay, I need to be an adult, like, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to get like a 9 to 5 job, like all these things. And I think your message is the same, is that there is something else there, like there is how you can live. And then what I particularly love about your story is that there were no blueprint for you, because you became an architect who is a nomad and finding your own path. So I think in that one, I think you're one of the coolest nomad I know.
Oh, thank you. That's so
But
kind of you to say.
no,
But honestly,
seriously.
I really want to address what you're saying here, because it's not, there isn't one correct way to live, and this is the starting point.
Exactly,
and probably the main takeaway. Test it yourself, right? There is something in psychology called openness to experiences. Do you know that?
No.
No. It's the scale. It's like a personality scale that says how likely are you to try something new, like new food, listen to music in new music, go to a place where you don't speak the language. How many new experiences do you need to feel alive? Some people, like my father, like some other people in my life, they love routine. They love having the same lunch every day. They love it. It's like, they savor it. And sometimes I envy them for that. Like, oh, it's so wonderful to just, enjoy that, so mindful in a way, to just enjoy the moment and not think of what else is out there. But for me, I love the new things, to do things for the first time, to go to a new country, to a new culture, and to to immerse in that and just let it all in. And yeah, I will try a different dish on the menu if when I go to the same restaurant, because I want to experiment with new things. But this is just how I am wired, and it doesn't mean that everyone has to do that.
Yeah.
You know, oftentimes people go with, yeah, but you know, I don't think nomadic life is good for me, and I didn't say anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
I know what you mean.
like,
I don't want to sell it for you. Like,
exactly. I wasn't trying to convince. I was just sharing about how I live now.
Yeah,
It's like that's all, you know. And so then to get defensive, and there's always we compare as people, but I think the only person we should compare ourselves to is ourselves.
yeah.
Like, where were you 5 years, 10 years ago, and then where do you want to be, and how, yeah, what supports you in your journey, and how can you get there? That's it.
So do you think other jobs that seem impossible right now? So what if somebody, I don't know, like an engineer listen to us right now, just to stay close. What would you recommend to them? How to find, if you don't have a blueprint, because if you're a social media manager, virtual assistant, or
Yeah.
you know, or the remote jobs that you know that you can.
How to be location independent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always something. So first of all, I would go to what did you do during COVID, because now we have the case study of how people can work remotely. But also, there is this one component of each job that can be done without being on site. I believe that. Like, there is something. I know a friend. He's a lawyer who's traveling. Right.
A lawyer.
A lawyer.
How cool.
Yeah. So he works with a firm, right? He's not he's like freelancing for them. And then when he need to appear in court, they send someone else. Or sometimes he will fly especially for that, but that's quite rare. And the rest of the time he can just do his job remotely. But he knows the local law of where the firm is based, and that's enough for them.
Yeah, frankly, you can like sign everything online right now. Like I can
Yes.
completely see that happening. Yeah. I never. Ooh, I have so many lawyer friends who needs to hear this. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny.
Wow.
Even like I once had a friend who's a teacher asking me about that. Oh, I really want to travel. How can I do that? Well, first of all, teaching online, that's an actual thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then all those new schools that are popping up. That would be interesting
Yeah.
to travel between them and to create the next generation of world citizens. And what does that mean? You know, those kids, they don't need, no one needs to teach them about diversity. They live it. They
Yeah.
see it every day.
I have one more question. I think it was like 50 minutes ago where it would have been better to put this question. I'm still,
Let's try.
it bugs me still.
Okay.
So how do you see the future now, based on cities and villages? Because we talk a lot about basically experience design and community design, and I'm a true believer, but I cannot see. I'm not a visionary in this respect. So what do you think is going to happen now with all these needs?
Okay, yeah, let's give it a go. So, honestly, what we're already seeing nowadays is those new groups of belongings, right? That so instead of waiting for the government or I don't know, social services to take care of you, you'll find your group of people that you take care of each other, and those little guilds that we used to have, or villages, even online communities of real support of people that is very, very, very niche with their values and interests. There will be the new structures. And we see those kind of groups coming together and buying properties together and developing houses for each other, or doing timeshare between different cities and locations. So it's going to be very, very creative. It's going to be based about the new sense of belonging. So it's not only the people who are physically around me that I connect with. Maybe I'm connected to a few different communities and we meet in different places and all that. And yeah, like cities are still, like, cities are great. I love nature, but I also love a good city, you know, like art and culture. And one of my professors coined this term called intimate anonymity, which is the feeling that you're close to so many people, but no one knows who you are. You know, you're about to cross the street and you're in proximity around you to, I don't know, 5 to 10 people. You don't know them, they don't know you, but you may become friends. There is a potential of starting a conversation. And just that feeling is that tension that keeps cities alive, that glue of that curiosity of like, oh, here's something interesting, someone interesting. We could meet. Maybe I don't feel like it today, but it's there. So cities are still a very interesting place to be in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love this idea. Like, I got lost. We're both in Berlin, by the way, right now,
Yeah.
while we are recording this. And then we went, I just went from one public transport to another one, and I got lost, and I asked someone. And it was this awkward moment when he's like, well, I'm going that way. And it was like a 5-minute walk. So we started walking, we started talking. And it's like, when is it too much? When is it like, when we can say goodbye? But it was exactly what you expect. I experienced this 2 days ago. It was really fun. Yeah. So cities have their
It's that.
places.
So
Yeah.
as humans, we like other humans, and we like to choose how close we want to be with them. And cities allow you that balance. And some of the smaller communities also allows that. And it's really about having choice. So the more choice you'll have in your environment, the more free and relaxed you feel, and you're more likely to spend time there. And oftentimes when we design co-living projects, the founders, they want to do this one big living room and everyone sits together. That's the wrong way. You never force people to be together. And then they force people to go to their own private space, walking through this living room so they meet. No, 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 no. You give them a glimpse of that. You tell them, like, show them it exists, make it juicy enough, make it beautiful enough that they want to spend time there, but you never force them in. Yeah. So I guess communities of choice, families of choice would be what I see in our human future. Another interesting thing is that, for each trend, there is a counter trend. So for being hyper connected, with being all the time online, and let me ask you this. When was the last time you went offline, and for how long?
It was Burning Man. And I was forced, but I loved it. I think, yeah, that was it. And then probably Nomad Cruise would be one of those. So I think those things when I don't have internet would be one. But and then also parties where you're not allowed to take your phones in. Especially in Berlin, there are a few places where they take your phone away. So and I love it. And I freaking love it when that happens. And because I'm so in the present and
exactly.
and
So at the beginning, there's a little bit of anxiety. It's like, where's my phone? Like, there's actually a name for it that like people need to see their phone, to have it within distance. Like it's crazy. And then the new luxury is to be unplugged. Is to be disconnected, is maybe not to reply to the messages immediately, because we're so expected to be connected that all of a sudden being somewhere where you're not reachable, that's a real luxury. So also in how we live, I think we're going to see more of that. We're going to see more hyper connected and unplugged communities that are just like, you know what, I don't do this social media thing. I'm not available online. I actually walk around with a dumb phone,
Yeah.
I really like the one that you can call them?
Flip phone.
Flip phone, yeah.
So you're a drug dealer now.
A burner phone, one of our community members. Yeah. The fact that you don't have apps, all those apps that makes your screen
I know.
black and white and limit your time. You're like, you know what? I want to go simple. I see that technology is not making me feel more in present with my life, so I'm going to disconnect. And that's another movement that we see.
Yeah. So I can imagine that we are going to have like these weekend getaways and retreats more often, and then meditation and coming back to us. So yeah, because we're so connected, and especially if that thing that you're talking about, like living in a connected environment with the chosen community where we are, it might be a good idea. And probably we are going to be connected to everybody around the world. I think it's going to come that there's going to be these retreats for the weekend where you just go to unplug and not answer any questions.
And how you manage your data, right? Like now we're so influenced, like the biggest forces in the market are convincing us, our subconscious mind, that we need to buy this and that or wear this and that and all that. So every time we're not choosing intentionally what we're going to do, someone else choose for us. So to be unplugged, to listen, to tune in into what you want and not what society or commercials or your parents or your friends from school tell you should be doing, to really tune into that, that's getting harder and harder because they're competing on our attention. So to have the ability to have attention to what's going on inside us, that's real luxury. That's real wellness.
Wow.
And to nourish that connection, that's going to be a fight over those next 2 years because it's getting more and more personalized with AI. You can have this profile of everything I ever posted. My voice is online. Someone can easily create a podcast with my voice. Please send me a copy if you do that. I'm curious to hear what are we going to talk about. But, so where is this going to? Where they know us better than we know ourselves because it can read our body language and see how we respond to things. So we have to be better at reading our needs and creating our paths and in making the choices that we actually want to choose, and we don't just do it because everyone else does, or
Yeah.
So this is going to be really interesting.
Wow. Oh my God, so much things. Yeah. The data, I haven't even thought about it. Like, of course, I thought about it, but not in this respect. And I think being authentic, it's going to be the future. And then authentic communities, authentic connection to yourself and to others. And how we are going to form, therefore, the villages of the cities where we are going to live is going to be around how original you are.
Because everything we create, everything we design, designs us back. It's very easy to see that in Berlin, where we are right now.
Yeah.
If you go to the east, completely different scale of architecture.
Yeah.
You feel smaller, the environment is more monotonous. Then you go to the other side of the city, a completely different story. And those places we create, they shape us back. And all the environments that we live in, they shape us back. So what are we building and for who? And for what purpose? What is kind of activation? I'm bringing it back to architecture because I believe it's one of the tools that we're not really using nowadays. We're biohacking everything with the rings and the ice baths and all that, but the places where we live in and how they affect our alertness and the quality of our sleep and how we process information and our thoughts. Like, do you see, like, what you see from your window affects how you think? That's insane.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
The optic field, like how far you can see into distance, that actually change the way we process information. That's why when you want to think about something, like some great ideas, you always go to somewhere that is very endless, like a hilltop or the ocean, or things that you can see very far. Yeah.
You should see my face. I'm sorry that we don't have a camera. I was just like jaw dropped. Like what? Like all my biggest ideas came because I went out in nature and then I was just looking at distant things. Interesting.
So we feel that intuitively, but now we also have the tools and the studies that kind of prove that, so people take it more seriously. There's an entire field called neuroarchitecture and neuroaesthetics that checks how our bodies respond to beauty and to like how our brains respond to buildings and spaces and the height of the ceiling and the temperature of the light. So this is very interesting tools to play with, and I want to invite everyone who's listening to us to be more in tune. When you go into a place and something works for you, try and question why. And when you go into a place and you don't feel comfortable, maybe you're sitting with your back to the wall, to the door, or I don't know, there's like something about the white light that is, just not working for you.
So hell no.
Change that because it takes a toll. Pay attention. What is it that you love? Seek more of that. See what's not working for you. Avoid that. Change that. Ask to change the light or change how you see it. Like, because these are all in our neurobiology, we're responding to things all the time. And the less we have to overcome unpleasant environments, the more energy and resources we have to actually create and be present. And I'll leave you with that. I can talk for hours.
We just get to the point. I'm like, I would love to ask more questions around neuroscience, but I think you need to come back for another round of questions.
Happy to.
Yeah, I felt we went all over the place, and I loved it. I love this conversation again with you as always, and I felt it was really inspiring. So I really hope that the listeners are going to listen to all their neuroscience, and they're going to listen to their inside voice that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's so important. Thanks for having me. It's so much fun to talk to you always. It's such a great question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Last question. Where can people find you? And then if they want to know more about you, if they want to hear more of your ideas or learn more about what you're teaching, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So the easiest way to find me is through our website. It's The New Movement, which is thenewmvt.com. I guess also if you just Google nomadic architect, you'll find me.
The nomadic architect.
If you want to hear more about my story, there's a TED Talk, and feel free to follow online. My Insta is nomad.architect.me. And yeah, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. And there's my podcast. Yeah, we're recording season 4 now, which is really fun, where we host founders of unique projects who are changing how we live, work, and connect. So if you are curious to know more about the journey that happens between the idea and the actual project and the insights that people have along the way, it's called Go Out and Talk to Strangers. You can find it on the website or also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the podcast apps. Yes, I think that's about it.
Okay, awesome. I also call this in search of something different, ideas on how we live, work, and connect. So you have so many things that we have. I had no idea about that. We are cut from the same cloth, I can say.
We are.
So I'm really looking forward to have a second episode of this, and I'm really looking forward.
Thank you again for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
You are listening to the In Search of Something Different podcast, where we talk about new ways and ideas on how we live, work, and connect. If you like this episode, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, as it helps in this word. And also, you can say hi on Instagram. You can find the show under In Search of Something -different. I'll come back to you soon with the next episode, but until that, don't forget to stay curious.